Well, this is the tutorial for our LaunchBot release from Team 4918, the Roboctopi. If you're at this video, you're either really confused or you're just trying to figure it out because you're smart and you're actually reading the directions. This is a good sign because it probably means it's going to take you less time than it took us, because it took us a while to figure this out. All the code is, you can do whatever you want with it, really. Change it to your designs, it's really open.
It's all GNU GPL licensed.
Yep. So this is just kind of a video of how to get started, because it's kind of confusing, but not really. So it'll probably come in a folder like this. We're going to post it on our GitHub. You're going to want to open the folder. And this is a diagram. I'm going to go over this first of kind of what's going on. This is your computer here. Or what your computer. It may be one of the mini laptops. They're terrible, but you might have one. This is the Launchpad. You can either use a Launchpad Mini or the Launchpad. They have to be the newer version, not the older version. It's probably better that you get the newer version for reasons of scrolling text, and also the lights are a lot brighter on the new ones. The Launchpad Mini, I think MSRP is like $99, so it's not terrible. I mean, it's a bit of money, but it's not terrible. You're going to want an Arduino. You're not going to need an Uno necessarily. I mean, you could really use another one of these teensy boards, but you're going to probably want an Uno. They're cheap. They're not bad. And then you're also going to need one of these teensy I think it's a 3.1 developing board. These are about $20 to $30. You can get them on their webpage. They are great. I love them. Be extremely careful, though, when you are soldering on these pins to not heat up any of the surface mount components. They're tricky. I've ruined one of these boards already. They're pretty hard to deal with, but they are great boards. They have a little ARM processor, and they have full USB capability, so they're really great. So what you're going to have to do is plug your Novation Launchpad or Launchpad Mini into your computer. You may need a USB hub for all this, because it gets ridiculous how many things you start plugging into your computer. This is the most foolproof way we've seen of doing it. There is a software way of doing it, but it is kind of sketchy. And also, this way we are almost positive is legal. So you're gonna have
FRC.
FRC legal. So you're gonna have to plug your Launchpad in, or your Launchpad Mini. You're also going to need to plug in your Teensy 3.1, which is a micro USB cable, like your phone. If you have a newer phone, those cables are pretty easy to find. And then you're also going to want to plug in your Arduino Uno. Now, connections between the Arduino and the Teensy is going to be our slave serial, or it's going to emulate our joystick. It's going to literally act like a USB joystick when you plug it in, and that's what's going to be the final end of our chain. So what happens is you feed data in and out of the Launchpad. The MIDI in going into the Launchpad, it's a USB MIDI port, will turn on and off lights and set patterns and things, and then the MIDI out of the Launchpad is what's going to tell the computer which buttons are pressed and how long they're pressed. That data gets fed into the computer, into the program that we have written in the computer. It's called the LaunchBot driver. That program then interprets that, sends it out to the Arduino as USB, a USB virtual serial port. The Arduino Uno then kind of deciphers that and sends it over via actual serial, a 2-wire serial with a ground reference, to the Teensy, and then the Teensy spits that data out as USB joystick data into the computer, and there you have your joystick. Now, honestly, you could just use an FTDI chip here if you really wanted to figure that out. We just used an Uno because that's what we had, and I didn't really want to buy an FTDI chip, so that's what we did. But honestly, this is really modifiable. You can basically do this in many of ways. This is really a simple system diagram. If you have any questions, you can email us at our website, but we'll probably come out with more videos. So I'm going to move on now. I'm going to move on to the actual software. So I guess we should probably start with the first thing you're going to have to do is actually load your code onto your Uno. and onto your Teensy. So the Uno is the master because it is the one taking data and sending it off to the Teensy, which is the slave. So when you get it, you'll get an Arduino file. You're going to have Arduino and processing installed on your computer. These are two completely free programs, great programs, pretty easy to install. There'll be instructions on their websites. They're pretty easy. Both the master and the slave programs on the boards are really super duper simple. So basically the master is the one that you're going to load to the Arduino Uno. It basically acts as a serial repeater or an FTDI chip. So it literally picks up it starts software serial, which is basically adding more UARTs to the chip. It begins serial, and then what it does is it actually checks if there's serial available at the USB serial port, which is plugged in your computer. That will be the data coming from the program. It will then, if there is, send that data to the new serial, which will be the virtual serial, and then it will actually check if there's information coming from the virtual serial and send it back to the computer. And this is a really good way for you to interface any types of things other than just the LaunchPad. You can plug analog, you can plug lights, you can plug all kinds of things into this and have them interact with what's happening in the LaunchPad. So RGB LEDs, if you push a button on the LaunchPad or if something happens, you have feedback. We're also thinking of that with the new this year's external board that plugs into the computer that you can get analog out of. You could run serial from that into this Arduino and also feed data back into this loop and actually get joystick data out. So this is a good way, having it broken back out into tangible real world kind of systems to use it again instead of just doing it all in serial. It's also really reliable. There's not that many debug things in this code. You could add them if you wanted to, but honestly, we're running at 9,600 baud. It's not really too big of a deal. It's almost foolproof. So I'm gonna move on to the slave serial, which is going to be the code you're gonna load onto your Teensy, which loading code onto a Teensy is a little bit different. What you actually need to do is, when you install Teensy, you have to install the Teensy folder, which also will load itself onto this Arduino thing. There's really good instructions on their website. You'll probably be able to figure that out. What the Teensy does, you can modify this as well. This takes the serial data from your program from the Arduino Uno, and it takes that serial data and it turns it into joystick commands. So basically what I've set up here is just joystick stuff that sets all the joysticks at the dead zone, so you don't have any joysticks flipping flying around, because that's not good. Then this is really simple. This is just for buttons right now. You could set this to anything you want. There's an entire library. It has all of the USB capability. It's crazy. So basically it's checking for serial, sets a buffer to the serial, and then basically if the serial is greater than 100, which basically means that you add 100 to the button number to say that the button needs to turn on, it decodes that by subtracting and then sets that button to high. And then if it's less than 100, which basically means the button has been sent as an off, it just sets it to an off. And it's really super simple. It's a loop. It runs. You don't have to reprogram this every time. It's a cakewalk. Honestly, this code's really simple for Arduino stuff. Totally changeable, modifiable. It'll be good. Now we kind of get on to the hard part, which is going to be in here. This is the serial master driver. This is going to open with processing. Processing is an open source kind of. Arduino's window is actually based off of it, but it's designed to run kind of a Java-like software. You can actually export Java files and do things like that. Now, what this is going to do once it loads, it takes a little bit. This is going to be our this is what we're going to have, taking information from the LaunchPad sending information to the LaunchPad to turn on and off lights, and also sending information out to the serial to command, the joystick. So this is LaunchBot 1.6. Basically, we're going to start off just by going through this. I've commented most of it out. It's not super duper commented, but there's enough in there for you to figure it out. These are the light codes. The LaunchPad works on a system of sending MIDI commands to turn lights on and off. And they're not RGB LEDs, but they're actual. You get a red LED and a green LED, so you can have multiple different colors. Which is you get an amber, a yellow, a green, a red, and an off. And you actually send this number here to the LaunchPad to command which color you would like the light to be. It's a little bit complicated, but it's not bad. So basically what's going to happen here is these are the three things you're going to have to change per your setup. It's pretty important that you check these every time you run the program. So the comm list number is basically the number on which the LaunchPad shows up on, not the LaunchPad, but the Arduino Uno shows up on in the list when you list out your COM ports. Normally you don't have any virtual COM ports open, so I've basically set this to 0, which means the first one it finds it'll connect to. This is about the easiest way to do it, as long as you don't have any other Arduinos or anything plugged in. But if you did, you could set them to that as well. You could set this to a name and be able to do that just like these two here. But what you're going to need to do is set that to the serial you want hooked up, which is pretty easy. You're normally just going to have to leave it there. These two are the hard part. Normally the LaunchPad shows up as LaunchPad Mini or as LaunchPad, and this is the name that shows up in the actual MIDI address on your computer. But this can change sometimes, and I have no idea why it does this. I'm not sure if it does it on other computers, but I've left it open to this. What you're going to have to do is, I just plugged in the LaunchPad. I'm going to show you. When you click Run on the program, once it runs, it takes a little bit to run the first time. It's a little bit complicated. It may throw an error. It may not throw an error. So it did throw an error, but that's because I didn't have the serial plugged in. So I'll do that again with the serial plugged in, and we shouldn't get an error that time. So I've plugged in the Arduino Uno, which is basically what I'm using for the serials, and it needs to detect the serial and the LaunchPad to be able to run the program. So I plugged it in. I'm going to try to run the program again. Sometimes you have to do this. There we go. And it's going to run the program, and if it can't find the LaunchPad, okay, so see what it's done here is it is highlighted this. This basically means that the error is in that it can't find that in the buses. So you'll see down here in this window there's an error window, and this is really helpful. So it basically is telling you there are no available input or output devices named LaunchPad Mini. Basically just scroll up, and I've set in this a system that will list out all of the MIDI inputs that are open and also all of the MIDI outputs. Now, these random ones labeled in here are things that are attached to your computer that just come with your computer if you have a PC. I'm not sure if they show up on Mac. This is going to be different on Mac. I'm not even going to get into that because it gets a little bit complicated sometimes with the MIDI things. But see how here it still says LaunchPad Mini, but there's a 2 and then a dash before it. It does this sometimes. It's weird. Also down here. So what you're going to want to do is, once you see those and seek those out, you're going to go up to the part that I was talking about before, right at the top here, and you're going to put a 2 dash LaunchPad Mini. So you're basically going to match these up to the ones that show up in the input and the output, and they'll probably be the same. I've never seen them be different numbers. They'll be the same. So then what we're going to do is run it and just check that it runs. So if it does run, we're good. And I'll continue going down the list after we see. So it does run. And this is basically the window that shows up when it is running. So this is pretty easy. I'll go back to that in a little bit. I'm going to continue scrolling down. So basically, we're importing a ton of libraries. This is actually a pretty complicated processing sketch. We're basically setting some things, setting some integers and some strings and some boolean, setting some controller statuses. Basically, all this stuff here in this area. It's called it's a CP5, which is basically a really good program, or a good library in processing to basically extend past like basic HTML for your window. It's kind of like a format. It's really nice. It looks good. So that's basically setting up the window. This stuff here is setting up the serial, basically connecting to that port, creating the port. This is also doing some stuff of that. It's checking some lists in the serial. This is connecting the MIDI input, and this is connecting the MIDI output and also listing the MIDI input and outputs. We're setting some text for the MIDI in and out, creating new bus. So these are the commands that basically do things on the LaunchPad. So the send controller change, this is a command, a 000 on a send controller change resets the LaunchPad, which is just helpful. Also, this sets the controller to flashing possible, which means it sets it basically to that some of the lights can flash. These are the kinds of commands that we use to control the lights on the LaunchPad. So they're still MIDI, but it sends them in an interesting way. So this is just setting some things in the window. We're moving down, setting some more stuff. Status light. Controller and idle. So this is another one. This is how we send a light. So I think that's a light on, yes. And you can read up on this online. Launchpad has released all of their data for making this kind of open source, their stuff, which is really cool. It made it basically possible to write this program. This is pretty important. So this is the template. And what this does is when you first turn on and enable the LaunchPad, these are the lights that are going to show up basically on your LaunchPad. So these are going to be your buttons, where you have your buttons, where you have your lights to start off with. This is kind of the pattern you want. And basically you just set the lights, it counts from left to right, all the square buttons. The round buttons you have to address them differently. They're a little bit confusing, but right now it has capability for all of the square buttons. So this is a big array. Buttons 1 through 7, 16 through 23. These are all by rows, and I've labeled the rows. They're pretty easy to figure out. You get pretty fast at counting over rows and stuff and figuring this out, and you can trial by fire. I set this up so that these 12s are light off commands. You can see those in the top. The 63 is a light on. It sets it to a color. All those numbers in there, all these numbers, are the ones you're going to change to the lights that you want on when you first turn on the controller. And I'll scroll up to the top, and these are the numbers you're going to use. So you can see a 63 is amber at full power. A 12 is off. And this is basically the chart that you're going to use to figure those out. And you memorize them pretty fast. We're going to scroll down back to that point. Once you get all through that, you're going to do it for all the lights. It's pretty complicated. It's not terrible. It takes a little bit. You only have to do it once. This basically sets all of those lights to what they need to be when the controller started up. This is the keypad stuff. So this is the most important part. If you just set the lights, nothing will happen when you actually push the button, which isn't good. So basically what you need to do here is what you're going to do is find the pad you want to do what, and you're going to set that pad to which button you would like it to press. In this case, it's pushing joystick button 1, and this is where it sends the serial out to the Uno, and then the Uno sends a serial to the teensy, which then acts as a joystick and presses that button. So it's a big chain of stuff, but it works pretty well. You're going to set it to 0 if you want that key to be dormant, if you want that pad on the launch pad to be dormant. So that will basically set the button to 0, and that pad on the launch pad will do nothing. You're going to, see I have joystick button 1, joystick button 5, joystick button 3, button 4, button 2, and these are all the buttons that you're going to have when you press the button. You can definitely set more than one pad to a button, which is helpful. This is basically performing the commands that happen when you press a button, so it checks if a button's pushed. It takes that button and it checks for in this array, it checks for the number that you set it to. It adds 100 to indicate that the button is being turned on. This is extremely important. It adds 100. It then sends that. It sends a command to the pad that was just pressed to change to the on press color. Now the on press color can be found up here, I think. I'll find it for you. This is the color that. Here we go. So pad on press, set to 60. So you're setting this to the color you want the button to change to when it's pressed. So in my case, I think they turn green. So that's kind of a feedback on the launch pad. So it sets that feedback, and then it also sends a status to the thing that a button was pressed to the debug console. It also actually writes to the serial port that button ID, which is this, or the button, the thing in that, what you've set that button to, plus 100 to indicate that the button is turned on. And if it's 0, it won't do anything. So that's how we figured that out. So key release performs basically the same thing, but sends it off without adding 100, and also sets the light, resets the light coming from the template. Background, the load background, there's a key on the thing to load the background. There's some other stuff in here, and then basically a delay handler and some other things. And this is, it's pretty complicated. Some of it's a little bit weird. Feel free to fix whatever you feel like you need to fix, and it's kind of a base to start off of. It works, it functions as a program, and it's pretty cool. So we're planning on probably sending out more of these updates and more of this program and more updates to the program down the road. Basically, that's it. We'll probably do a video of some other things of I think we have one video up of the actual LaunchPad driving the robot, but I'll do another tutorial video of the system, how you plug everything in and what it looks like and how to run it. So thank you from Team 4918, the Roboctopi in Port Townsend. And yeah, I guess see you guys at competition. We hope you use it. We hope you enjoy it. I hope it's helpful. We think it's pretty cool because it opens up the possibility that you don't have to create a new controller box every year. So see you guys at the competition. Bye.